Hey, peace, world. Um, my name is Wood. Thanks for clicking on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. I am really going to try to keep this one really briefly, or really brief. Really brief. The Shy. What are we in? Episode 4 was this week, and I mentioned last week. I'm not really going to come on and continue to bash the show if it continues to decline and kind of struggle with figuring out what it's trying to do. I'm sorry I didn't get the name of the episode. Gangway. um I'm just not gonna come on and pile it on. I'll continue to watch. I want to see what happens to Keisha, maybe what happens to Jake, um with his brother trying to take him away from Duda. But it kind of gets moved down in my must watch list. Be just I don't know. I'm just not getting much out of it. Um, so I'm not trying to really attack it here. I'm just trying to make a couple of points. I think what one problem that they have is figuring out they've had this. What do you want to be? Do you want to show about a coming of age story in the city of Chicago and how it helped turn Lena Waithe into who she is and give her outlook of the world? Do you want to do that? Do you want to talk about the love story? Now we have Tiff and Emmett, who are like doing all of this married couple stuff, but they aren't married. And then there's the issue that the pregnancy we were told about last year, supposedly they'll address that before the end of the season, but we haven't heard anything about it to this point. But that's the reason why they got back together. Then we have Ronnie, who a season and a half ago was at the mosque. Now he's running around. I guess it didn't work out with Allah, and now he's running around with Papa's dad, who is the pastor of a church, and now he might be getting baptized. If you looked at the trailer for episode 5, but now this brother has fallen from having a place to live, from living somewhere, to now eating out of a trash can and just accepting it. And then we have this mayoral race, and Duda not too hands-on with his street organization this year. We don't know what happened to the group that the crew that Reg was running. I guess they're just rudderless or strewn about the streets of Chicago or something. So we don't know what's going on with that. But now Duda is trying to get in, trying to run for office. And like I said, this is when you're kind of, when the writing, what is going to be your wheelhouse? Like what are you going to really hang your hat on and keep us here for? Because if we're going to get into politics, like that takes a certain kind of, right, just like if you're talking about the streets, that takes a certain type of detail to have street characters and to depict street tales and criminal activity. It takes it takes the ability and the skill to write these types of things. Now, interestingly enough, we had a very dope show out there that was handling big issues in Chicago in a phenomenal way. The show was called Pearson. It was on USA. It starred Gina Torres. I missed it back in November, but they canceled it after one season. And it was very well done, because this is one thing with the politics. I don't really care about dudes sitting here telling me that I want to get involved in politics because they said an N-word from Inglewood couldn't do it. And I'm tired of a lot of the activism, the woke, the calling out, the rebelling and all of that. I'm tired of people just calling out empty things. I want this. I want this. It needs to be this. There ain't no jobs here. The schools suck. Blah blah blah. That's all relevant. That's all true for the most part. But beyond just yelling these things and pointing these things out and calling attention to it, Pearson, in contrast, was actually trying to address these things and brought up solutions to some of these things. Like Lena Waithe goes into this church. It's always the most stereotypical thing. She gives a huge envelope of cash to talk to this congregation with 7 rows of pews in it. That's money well spent. Just to get some FaceTime with your congregation. Here you go, pastor. And then Papa sees that. But what I'm saying, you get up here to say all of these things and the Chicago I know, and ignore the fact that I'm a lesbian and come to know my family and know blah blah blah. But she didn't say anything about how you intend to. Okay, it's the job market. There aren't jobs around that pay a living wage, or that serve as a means for some upward mobility, whatever. I'm getting above my head. But you don't say anything about what companies trying to persuade or putting a presentation together to get Amazon to build one of it, open a fulfillment center near here, or any of these Fortune 500 companies, how we can get any of them to come invest locally, and then what those types of jobs mean for the mom and pop stores, and how things can improve, and we got something more for Ronnie to be doing than going around collecting recyclable, bottles and aluminum and plastic bottles and whatnot. But Pearson was talking about these things. Pearson was talking about housing inequality, and they were doing this in season 2 with Jerica. They were. Let me not even start. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, Pearson. Now Pearson was about a disbarred lawyer who came back from New York. It was a spinoff from USA Suits, which I haven't watched. But Pearson ran into some trouble, was disbarred, and then came back to Chicago from New York and got into the mayoral office, as the mayor's fixer, and was going out and dealing with these things in the community. How could money get diverted to certain schools, to lunch programs? It was substantive stuff that she was doing. But, we may not be huge fans of Gina Torres. Or maybe it wasn't sexy enough because she was married to a man in the show. I don't know. They had her cousin, I believe, was in the show and lived in the lower, a working. All these phrases you gotta have correct. But her cousin was kind of lived in the hood, basically lower income housing, had 2 boys. Grandma lived with them. No baby, no father in the picture. But she was going to school and working full time and trying to raise these 2 young boys. So it had some reality to it. And they got into a protest situation where the people went and lived outside of the police station when they were trying to displace this lower income housing for this some kind of skyscraper of some kind, or some business building, commercial property that was going up. And so they dealt with all of these. But what I'm saying is, certain types of topics and certain kind of arcs require a certain level of writing and logic to make them believable. And so I just think that's where I'm kind of struggling with the Shy here, because when you get above these different, when you get into some of these different, that's why I thought the police angle, why I know the community isn't that fond of police, but the investigation was like, the relationship with Jerica and Brandon was kind of the substance of the show. Us adults could tune in and be entertained by that. But, now, like I said, this investigation just goes away. And I get in here and close. And I, like I said, I don't know everything. I'm not always right. Somebody pointed out to me on another comment, I was critical of the Sonny's after hours with the venture between Emmett and Dominique. And somebody, they got me somewhat. They said, they did set that up because Emmett told Dominique that basically he threatened to call and report her for running her kitchen out of her house. And I'm like, okay, well, they did take the time to do that. They did throw that detail in there as part of the reason why she would agree to go work for him. But the fact of the matter is, you've spent 2.5 seasons telling us that the police force and the local authorities don't do anything. They don't address anything. That's why they're out here trying to investigate a missing person in Keisha by themselves with, what's her name? Tanya? With Ronnie's... Tracy, with Tracy's organization. So so you really want me to believe that the local authorities, the city's people would get one call from Emmett and go over here and bust up this house? Now, I mean, I know she's not paying taxes on this income and whatnot, but come on, man. So, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I can own up to it. But I'm just saying, here and now dealing with the missing girl situation. Another quick minor detail, I guess. They're not going to let you go view the body. In season 1, remember they viewed the body of Jason at the morgue? That's where they would go to do confirm, identify the body. Not at the crime scene where you could compromise the evidence. So, but again, I'm not trying to get to. Nobody else cares about that, most likely. Lastly, we have Gemma and Kevin. I like Gemma, but are we gonna waste time with her correcting his English? So it's just weird what battles they choose to fight, the writers and the showrunner, what battles they're gonna fight and which ones they're not going to. So like I said, man, these are just some things. This is just my reactions to the show. I'll just leave it at that, man. I just leave it at that. My name is Wood. Thanks for clicking play on another video. Continue to enjoy The Shy in season 3. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.